Yeah, lovely to be here and to be with you all. I'm just going to do a few minutes sort of explanation of my ideas around key elements of innovation that I think are important, particularly for my students, but more broadly out there in the world. So I was asked to talk about innovation beyond design, and as Netta was talking, I think obviously there's a strong link between the two. So we'll go into that a little bit. The reason I wanted to talk about going beyond design is that I believe that there are skill sets that are needed, not just within design, but we need to bring together people from a range of different disciplines to tackle the challenges that are classically captured in the United Nations sustainability goals that we all, are pressing needs for all of us, both locally and globally, and how they interact. So my work, particularly with students in the Royal College of Art, is addressing some of these types of issues in a small way, perhaps. And I'll show you some examples towards the end of my talk that you can get a sense of what the projects that they're doing. I also want to give a little bit of background to how we try and deal with bringing together skills and the importance of bringing together skills from different backgrounds, what we call interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary innovation. So I'll briefly explain what I mean by that and why I think that's important. And our philosophy and our approach is to tackling these types of issues. So the reason, I just give you one example, you can read that, maybe I won't go through it all, but if you're trying to address climate action, there are a whole range of factors, if you're going to do it well, that you need to consider that cover a lot of different skill sets and knowledge bases, and that wouldn't just lie within any particular discipline, whether that be design or engineering or natural sciences, physics, biology, or whatever. So there needs to be a collaboration, in my view, if we're going to tackle these complex issues. And the programs that I run jointly with Imperial are aimed to sort of addressing some of these types of issues. So therefore, I really wanted to talk about the power of transdisciplinary innovation in particular. It's not that specialist skills are not important, obviously they are, but in addition to that, the power of this type of approach I want to touch on. So you hear these terms around a lot, and I thought I'd give you a quick difference and definitions of terms you might have heard: multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary. There's some debate between the differences, or are there any differences between inter and transdisciplinary? We can argue maybe at some point, but I guess transdisciplinary is very much about that transcendence of disciplinary norms. So you're coming together, and it's particularly suited, researchers would argue, to tackle these more complex interdisciplinary challenges that we all see in the world. Versus multidisciplinary, it's more about just coming together and cooperating, but staying within your own discipline and with your own area of work. So that's not that level of cohesion or transcendence that you might see in transdisciplinary innovation. And this is the area that I'm particularly interested in. But there are challenges with that, trying to bring together people from different backgrounds to work together, and moving beyond their discipline and their ways of thinking and their ways of working is not straightforward. So some examples here: different culture, different frames of reference. If you're taught through engineering versus through anthropology or through design, those frames of reference and the way of seeing the world, the way of addressing the world through methodologies and methods might be quite different. The way you see and objectives you set, the different languages even within the disciplines or between the disciplines can be quite problematic because you misunderstand each other possibly. So there's personal challenges also related to gaining trust and respect from others from different disciplines. As an engineer, it was an eye-opener when I first met designers back in the mid-90s when I was working for Apple, and they started asking very awkward questions that I was in a group of about 20, 30 PhD computer science and engineers, and we were very good, but no one had ever asked those questions. And it blew my mind, and I thought, oh, this is rather embarrassing that this person, and when the designer for their point said that they were blatantly obvious questions to ask, and we'd never asked them. And that was my first turning point and insight, saying, I can't go back and just work in my own discipline. From now on, I have to work transdisciplinary. And since '95, that's basically what I've been doing in various forms. So I think this creative process, this design process, innovation, I'm not going to go into debate on the different names and what they might mean now, but again, we can do that another time. It's a messy process because you have to work out what to do as well as how to do it. One of the challenges for our students is we don't tell them what brief they need to work on. They have to discover. The idea of discovery is incredibly important. Once you discover where you need to position yourself, working out how to do it on one level is somewhat easier in my view. But that's quite different for example, engineers coming from that type of background. So it's a messy process, and it's iterative, it's confusing. So how do you navigate this space? This is something I'm particularly interested in, and still interested in finding ways through it. So I wanted to give you some examples from one of the two programs that Annetta mentioned, Innovation Design Engineering. As you said, it's a master's program with Imperial College London, so it brings together the skills of engineering, science and technology from Imperial, together with the skills of sort of design, arts and humanities from the Royal College of Art. I think that's very powerful. It's been running for 44 years, way before I joined. It's actually a 2 years master's and a double master's, so they get an MA from the RCA and an MSc from Imperial College London. And the aim, we call it IDE for short, otherwise it's a mouthful. I'll read this out. It says, the aims of the program is to create a new type of innovator, one who will be a global leader in the future in the integration of design, engineering, science, and enterprise, and distinctly positioned to tackle the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous challenges society and the planet face. So we don't really force the students to do any projects. They define their projects in the second year. We do some sort of foundational work in the first year, but in the second year, they define their projects. One as a group project, one as an individual project. But as long as it makes a positive contribution to society and the planet, they can pretty much do anything, which is a great freedom and also a fear when they've given so much freedom to choose where they want to position themselves. But they need to justify that, obviously. So just an example of the backgrounds we get. This is the current cohort, first year cohort. You can see we get students from engineering side, from the arts side, from the sciences side, and also what we call wildcards, maybe people from business or other types of backgrounds. And we deliberately recruit people and encourage people to come from all these different backgrounds because we want to take this transdisciplinary approach. We feel it's so important. So, and also from a range of different cultures, we have 23 nationalities represented in the program, which we also think brings that different perspective and thinking. And also different age range. Some people have worked in industry for quite a few years. Some come fresh from bachelors, which is also quite powerful. So we don't really expect, or in fact, we demand the students find their own way through that messy innovation process, and they have to discover what steps they need to take along the way. But there's an overarching philosophy. This is something actually I developed 10 years ago, but it's very much in line with what the ID students follow, and it's called the LCD model. So listen, connect, do. As you can see, it's a non-linear model. It's a set of activities which might be human-centric, be about connecting both ideas and with people, but also about taking action and moving between these spaces. But at the center of it, the word is be. That means your state of being, the individual attitude and approach and mindset that you have is critical as well as just the activities. The activities alone will not help you navigate the innovation space because how you understand the world, see the world, question the world, and work with others is equally crucial. So if you look at the approach side, it's dynamic, it's non-linear, it's spontaneous, it's iterative. So the students at each stage have to work out where they go next. But all are important. You can't just stay. It's not just about just do it. That's not good enough. Yeah, there has to be reflection. There has to be active listening, as Bethan might talk about later. And there might be, the connections, the idea of empathy with others and collaboration are all there and very practical. And as Netta was saying, it's not just about problem solving, but it's also about generating new questions to work out where you want to position yourself and why. And that's one of the most important elements of discovery. So this is a discovery process as well as a validation process, which obviously needs to be there at the end. But then the core of it, as I mentioned, is the individual, their state of being. And factors that can drive that is the sense of purpose, something that's meaningful that matters to them and matters to the world. If there's this sense of purpose, that gives you this drive and intrinsic motivation to have the courage as well then to move through those spaces. And innovation process is not easy to keep you going and to be resilient as you move through it. And you need to be fiercely curious and open-minded. If you're going to work with people from quite different disciplines and beyond, and other key stakeholders, you need to be empathetic, but also analytical. So all these types of key skills that we really need if we're going to tackle this innovation space. And then finally, but extremely importantly, you need to challenge your own conditioning, assumptions, and biases. Both from our cultural backgrounds and from our disciplinary backgrounds, we have this, and it's almost impossible to avoid it. It is impossible to avoid it, but you need to then question it and challenge it. And also, if you're working with others in the team, challenge that for them too. And through a deeper understanding, you will get, hopefully, to better ideas and better solutions to make a positive impact in the world. So this is our general philosophy in the IDE program, and I would say in transdisciplinary innovation is very important. And we're very lucky to have an ecosystem around the student program where we have incubator units both at the RCA and Imperial College London, where if they've got really interesting ideas, they're then supported to develop those ideas and take those out into the world. So I'm going to give you a few examples, 3 examples of projects that were developed in the second year group projects as part of the IDE program. And I thought that might speak better than me talking about them, so you see the sort of work that the students create. So the first one, I don't know if I click play, this is going to work directly. It's the first test. This is a group project from last year, year before last actually. And these are the students listed here, all part of the IDE program, range from different backgrounds. And they've created a startup which won multiple awards internationally, so you might want to look them up, called Pulpatronics. So they're now developing and got various funding, a few $100,000 of funding to start their project on the way in development.
Pulpatronics unlocks a more sustainable RFID technology with our metal-free and chipless RFID tags. RFID technology stands for radio frequency identification. It basically uses radio frequency to identify products really efficiently. So it's used in supply chain for inventory management, anti-theft detection, as well as technology that enables auto checkout.
One of our core values is subtraction, and this is the idea that we generate value by removing rather than adding to an already existing system. And this is how we came up with our very minimalistic, streamlined RFID tags. And the way we achieve that is through our bespoke paper substrate that we then hit with very specific laser beam, which allows for us to induce conductive carbon-based tracks on our paper substrate, forming RFID antennas, which then store the information, allowing for item tracking and inventory management.
We know that our laser technology can work with paper, it can work with cork, it can work with cotton, and even potentially plant-based bioplastics.
Chloe and I met during our Master's Innovation Design Engineering at the Royal College of Art, and the project came out of one of our final year group projects, which was basically a self-briefed project.
When I first realized that I was contributing to e-waste by throwing these clothing price tags into landfill, I felt really guilty. And so we basically started Pulpatronics to help reduce unnecessary e-waste from going into landfill. We're very excited that there are sustainable initiatives like this out there, and we really hope that Terra Carta can continue to support us. It's a really good technology, but no one realizes what enables that to happen. It's all unseen. And so I think we're really trying to get people to be more aware of unseen electronics or unseen waste or unnecessary e-waste. And I think that we're trying to do that with Pulpatronics.
So they mentioned Terra Carta there. It's another support initiative actually set up by Johnny Ive, who was the Chancellor of the RCA, and who was Prince Charles, now King Charles, so help fund projects like this to help develop them further as well. So that's what they mentioned, Terra Carta. I also didn't mention briefly, which I wanted to do, which you see an example of that there in terms of that sort of LCD model. It's not a human-centered design-driven approach, although human-centered design is an element of it. It's not a technology-driven approach of innovation, but there's a technology element of it. But hopefully you can see from those examples, there was very much a sort of connection with people and understanding people, but also technological experimentation, but more from a creative design perspective than a classic engineering perspective. And those are core elements as part of the process that we do encourage the students to use for discovery, not just for final testing. And you can see maybe some examples there. Another example, this is from this year, another group project with my students, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
I'm Richard Alexandri, and I studied at the Imperial College of London, the Royal College of Art. Our inspiration started when we realized that by the end of the century, wildfires are going to increase by 50%, mostly in regions like the tropical forest and Arctic Circle. The big problem with that implementing the current technology is going to be just too expensive. My team was composed of Blake Goodwin, he has a background in engineering, Karina Gunadi also has a background in engineering and product development, and Tang Hao Yu, who has a background in industrial design. Working together, actually, we formed a very strong team. Our innovation is called Pyre. We are a nature-based early wildfire detection system. The way that we designed Pyre was to cover vast and remote areas. By using, for example, firefighter helicopters that already exist, we can scatter this through forests. And then when a wildfire starts, the heat activates the power source that sends signals to communication towers already available in the region. And then we tell the authorities so they can act before the fire becomes uncontrollable. When we designed Pyre, we actually worked with the concept of organic electronics that are not harmful to nature. Looking at the shape, we were pretty much being inspired by nature. For example, how the seeds of a pine cone works. The critical challenge was to be robust enough, but at the same time it should blend with nature. It shouldn't be like a human intervention. Winning the James Dyson Award just makes us very happy to see that we create something meaningful. By winning the award, the first point that's going to help us is actually exploring the manufacturing processes and how we can use the new materials that we designed for Pyre. The impact that we're gonna see is like actually taking us out of this horrific cycle of devastation that we are living in and avoiding all these wildfires impacts that we have in different communities.
So you can see they won the James Dyson Award, which is the main UK award in design. In fact, ID have won it for the last 3, perhaps 4 years in a row. So done pretty well. You maybe got a little shot of some of the studio space. So experimental needs studio space in my view. So that creative space I talked about is very important, and you maybe got some insight to it there. The last one I wanted to show you, and then I'll finish my talk, is a project from 10 years ago. I was not part of the group at this time. And actually this was interesting because this started as a group project, but as a side project. It was not something they were formally asked to do, but they wanted to do it anyway. And some of the projects you saw are more material-based, some are electronics-based. This one is very much a material exploration of biomaterials, which is something we cover in the first year as skill sets as well. And this NOPLA, it stands not for plastic. They've just secured $25 million to develop this work further this month. So I'll let you see what that's So as you can imagine, they're working hugely now with very big companies in the food packaging to develop this product, and I think it's going to have a massive impact. It's already having a massive impact in the world. But interestingly, Rodrigo 2 weeks ago was back in the studio helping the students with their project. So the alumni network is also incredibly important, and how they then come back and share their inspirations and motivations and ideas to keep that going through all the years. So I hope you get insight into my thoughts on innovation and some of the work we're doing at IDE. Thank you very much.